Hello everybody, this is Josh Blazer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to a Grim Dawn primer. For those of you who've been enjoying my Darkest Dungeon series, I'm preparing to do another video series dedicated to Grim Dawn, and I figure this will be a good introduction for people who aren't aware of the game or need to know why I'm excited about it. One thing to keep in mind, this title screen is still considered the final early access build. I don't know if they're going to change the screen for version 1.0, but just something to keep in mind if you're watching this on the day of release. Anyway, why am I so excited about Grim Dawn? Grim Dawn is developed by Crate Entertainment. These are guys who formerly were a part of Iron Lore, and they developed the game Titan Quest back in the thousands. Titan Quest came out during pretty much the period where Diablo 2 was the darling of the genre, and a lot of developers were trying to chase that success. We saw games like Nox, Divine Divinity, and a lot more which I can't remember off the top of my head. Titan Quest was considered one of the higher tier ARPGs. It did a lot of things very similar to Diablo 2, isometric game, hack slash, that kind of thing. But what the developers did to make it different, one was the fact that it took place during ancient Greece, so we dealt with a lot more Greek mythology rather than gothic horror of the Diablo series. The other very interesting part was how they designed the classes. Instead of you choosing a class from the very start and having that define you from beginning to end, you basically chose masteries as you leveled up. One, I think, at level 1, a second one at level 10, and then you were free to mix and match the skills and abilities how you saw fit. Did you want to create a heavy fighter who could also throw knives? You could do that. Did you want to be a pet summoner who could also use a bow if they needed to? You could do that as well. You weren't constrained like you were in Diablo, where you chose a class and that was it. You were hard-coded. The game had a lot more varied, I think, in terms of loot. While it didn't hit like the heights of Diablo 2's item generation, with the legendary and the set items, it gave you a lot more just sheer variety. The items were, I think, the loot tables, were very more varied compared to the Diablo series. Titan Quest was popular enough that it got an expansion pack, and it looked like we were going to get pretty much one of the closest games to compete with Diablo. That did not happen. There were several reasons for it. One, which is, I'm not sure if this is completely true, it's been a popular rumor, was the fact that they use a copy protection service, a copy protection software that made it seem like the game was having trouble. And a lot of people thought this was just the game acting up, and people rated it down because of it. Another thing I think that hurt the game was the fact that it was chasing Diablo 2, which is considered by many to be possibly one of the fine examples of ARPG games we've seen. Even some people consider it greater than Diablo 3. Now, with all that said, after the studio closed, a lot of the guys got together, they formed Crate Entertainment, and they've been working on Grim Dawn. I think it's been going on 3+ years at this point. The game was originally launched, I think, before Kickstarter, where you could buy into the game, similar to what they did with like Minecraft and Kerbal Space Program, where you could buy in early, get a far cheaper rate, and basically, roll the dice to see if you're going to get a great game or not. The game went on Steam, got onto, I think it was greenlit, or it just got onto early access, which it stayed on early access for, I know, at least 1.5 to 2 years. Forget what I just said about being 3 years old. I'm pretty sure it's been in development longer than that. So what makes Grim Dawn interesting is that, again, the developers are going with a unique setting. This is a steampunk Lovecraft-esque world where pretty much the apocalypse happened, and now people are trying to make do. Instead of having classes like the Warrior and the Thief and stuff like that from Titan Quest, all classes in this game are original and tied to the lore. So you have a class that uses like heavy guns and fire. several pet classes. The same deal, you pick a mastery, then you pick a second mastery, and then you're free to mix and match and do everything you want with it. The game's penchant for extreme loot, I'm sure, is here, especially during the time I spent with it in early access. I was just loaded to the gills with loot dropping, which was kind of one of the issues I had with the game. It's definitely, at least during the early access period, was rougher around the edges compared to Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, which is one of the reasons why I'm very excited to get back into it with the game's official release, which I believe, if you're watching this video on the day that I'm posting it, should be, I think, 2 or 3 days. They've added in different progression systems. I know the game is considered content complete, and when they go to 1.0, it's going to be essentially adding a lot of that final polish to the title. Now, previous times I've played Grim Dawn, I have just gotten tired of the game. Again, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3, and it's going to be, I think, very interesting to compare and contrast the two. One is, of course, Blizzard's, refinement machine at work, and the other is essentially the spiritual successor to what was supposed to be the next Diablo game. And I'm going to be playing the hell out of this one, just like I'm playing the hell out of Diablo 3. So be sure to look for that. As I said, I'm going to try to do daily plays of Grim Dawn like I do with Diablo 3, but I can't promise that. We'll see how far I can get. I know they've added in a completely new mastery since I last played Grim Dawn, which I have not even looked at yet, but I've heard good things about it. But hopefully that should give you enough of a treat or a taste of what Grim Dawn is. I know you're probably getting tired of staring at this, quite haunting title screen. We got corpses hung over here, sky looks all menacing, and all that crazy stuff right there. But be sure to come back in a few days when the Grim Dawn play will start for real. So, as I always say in these videos, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Check out game-wisdom.com for posts and podcasts relating to the game design industry, as well as our Patreon campaign, which can be found under Game Wisdom. Any donations would be greatly appreciated. And of course, check out me on Twitter and on Twitch, both as GW Bicer. I don't know if I'm going to do actual streaming of Grim Dawn. I probably will at least do some of it on the day of release, but I may resign 2 regular videos. Although this could be a great, on and off thing with the Darkest Dungeon. Switch on and off between one Lovecraft game with another. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks again for watching, and as I said, be sure to check out the full game in a few days. Take care.